Okay, welcome back everybody. This is practice test number 2, and we're just gonna jump right into it this time. This is section 3, the no calculator section. Okay, so what do we got here? We got if 5x plus 3 equals 10, what is the value of 10x plus 3? Well, there are going to be a lot of problems like this on the test, or not a lot, but there are a couple of these. We need to figure out what x is before we can figure out the value of this expression. So we're just going to solve this equation here. Subtract 6 from both sides. X equals 4/5. Okay. We're going to take that and plug it into our expression. Okay, and I'm going to multiply that first term, 40/5 plus 3. That's going to be 8 plus 3 equals 11. Okay, next we have which of the following ordered pairs satisfies the systems of equations above. For this, I'm going to use elimination, or sorry, substitution, I think, and I'm just going to substitute for y. So I'm going to solve the first one for y just by subtracting x from both sides. And then I'm going to substitute that back into the second equation here. So I'm going to get 3x minus 2 times negative x equals 10. Okay, well it's going to be 3x plus 2x equals 10, 5x equals 10. So x must equal 2. Okay, well, if x equals 2, that really helps because that eliminates everything except for this solution here. Okay, next problem. Problem number 3. Landscaping company estimates the price of a job in dollars using the expression 60 plus 12 NH, where N is the number of landscapers, and I'm just going to highlight that. N is the number of landscapers and who'll be working, and H is the total number of hours. And we're going to have it will take using N landscapers, the number of landscapers. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 12 in the expression? Okay, well, if we have N number of people working on a job for H hours, the total number of hours that they work, total hours is going to be the number of landscapers times the hours that they work. Yeah. And then if we want to figure out how much we're paying, it's how much it's going to cost for all of that time, we need to multiply this expression times the hourly rate. In this case, it looks like the hourly rate is 12. All right, so this expression 12 NH is going to tell us the total cost of the job, while 12 is going to tell us the hourly rate for each landscaper. And that looks like answer A. The company charges $12 per hour for each landscaper. Okay, number 4. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression shown above? Okay, so if we look at this expression up here, we'll see that we have a squared term in front and a squared term at the end. Okay, and then we've got something in the center. Well, that means that if we have, for instance, if we have a plus b squared, well, then we're going to get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so sure looks like we are going to be squaring some binomial here. Okay, the two terms that square a binomial are the two solutions that square a binomial are here, and we can see that if we square 9a squared, well, that's going to be 9a squared squared. Well, that's going to be 81a to the fourth. Too big. But if we square 3a squared, that's going to be 9a to the fourth. That's our solution. We can see that we can fill in the rest of the pattern here, and we see that if we square 2a squared, we'll get 4b squared, and then 2ab. 2ab is going to be 2 times 3 times 2, that's 12, and then a times b is, a squared, b squared is going to be this, these variables here. Okay, number 5. If k is greater than 0 and x equals 7 in the equation above, what is the value of k? All right, so then we are going to substitute in for 7, or x equals 7. Okay, we are going to subtract or add 7 to both sides. Okay, now to undo the square root, we're going to square both sides. On the left, we'll end up with 2k squared plus 17 equals, and then square the right side, we'll get 49. And now we're going to solve this equation. We need to isolate the power. So subtract 17 from both sides, and we'll get 32. We're going to divide by 2 on both sides, and we'll get k squared equals 16. The square root of k squared, well, that could be either -4 or +4, but we know that k is greater than 0, so in this case, k is going to be +4. Okay, number 6. In the xy plane above, line L is parallel to line K. What is the value of P? Okay, so we know that if two lines are parallel, that means that they have the same slope. So I think we should figure out the slope of this line here, and then we can figure out this missing value using the slope. So the slope of the line is going to be the change in y, so 0 minus 2 over -5 minus 0. It's going to be -2 over -5, or 2/5. Okay, so if the slope is 2/5, the slope for the second line should also be 2/5. So that means that 2/5 is going to be equal to, I'm going to subtract go from -4 minus 0 should be equal to, over 0 minus p. Okay, well, that's just going to be 2/5 is equal to -4 over -p. Okay, the negatives will cancel out, and then we can cross multiply. We'll end up with, I'm just going to write it over here, we're going to end up with 2p equals 20. Divide by 2 on both sides, we'll see that p equals 10. Number 7. If we have this expression, x to the a to the second over x to the b to the second equals x to the 16th, where x is greater than 1 and a plus b equals 2, what is the value of a minus b? Okay, well, for this we need to use properties of exponents. So we're going to start with, if we have a power, if we're taking the quotient of powers with the same base, then we subtract the exponent. So x to the a squared over x to the b squared is equal to x to the a squared minus b squared. Okay, good enough. All right. We also should see that this in the exponent here is a difference of squares, right? And the way that we factor that is we do square root of the first plus square root of the second times square root of the first minus square root of the second. Okay. Well, we know what a plus b is, so this is the same as 2 times a minus b. Okay. Okay, I think we're good now. Now let's bring in the other side of the equation. So we've got x equals 2 times a minus b. Well, that side is going to be equal to x to the 16th. We know the bases are the same. Bases are the same here. Therefore, the exponents must be equal. All right, so we just need to set up a new equation where 2a minus b equals 16. So then a minus b must equal 8. Okay, number 8. The measure a in degrees of an exterior angle of a regular polygon is related to the number of sides n of the polygon by the formula above. If the measure of an exterior angle of a regular polygon is greater than 50, what is the greatest number of sides it can have? Okay, so we've got the number of sides is n, and the angle is a in degrees. So if we know that the angle oops, let's use black. Angle is it says greater than 50 degrees. What is the greatest number of sides? Well, we've got the number of sides. We have the relationship between another number of sides is going to be NA equals 60. Well, if we solve for A, then we can substitute back into this inequality. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide both sides by n. So I get 360 over n equals a. Okay, well now I can plug this in for a. I'll get 360 over the number of sides has to be greater than 50. Okay, so now I just need to solve for n. Okay, I'm just going to multiply both sides by n and then divide by 50. Okay, So simplify that. We're going to get, we can cancel out the zeros, and we see that that's going to be something like 7.2 is greater than n. Okay, well, n cannot be, has to be less than 7.2, so we're looking for an integer because the number of sides has to be a whole integer, and it looks like 7 is going to be the greatest number of sides, less than 7.2. Okay, number 9. The graph of a line in the xy plane has a slope of 2 and contains the point 1, 8. The graph of a second line passes through the points 1, 2 and 2, 1. If the two lines intersect at a point AB, what is the value of A plus B? Okay, so this is going to be a system of equations. The first line has a slope of 2 and contains the point 1, 8. So I'm going to write that in point slope form. So y minus 8 equals 2 x minus 1. Okay, and the second line has these 2 points. Well, the first thing I need to do for the second line is to find the slope. So the slope for the second line is going to be 2 minus 1 over 1 minus 1. Oops, that mixed that up. 2 minus 1 over 1 minus 2. Okay, all right, well, that's going to be 1 over negative 1. It's just negative 1. Okay, I'm going to write this slope, or this equation, in point slope form. Y minus 2 equals negative 1 x minus 1. Okay, so now I've got the equations for both of the lines, and now I just need to find where they intersect. Okay, I'm going to put them both into y-intercept form, or just isolate the y value. Okay, start with this guy. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to distribute that 2x minus 2. And then subtract 8 from both sides. I'll get 2x minus 10. Alright, well, let's do this one. We're going to have y minus 2, distribute first, equal negative x plus 1. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I'll get negative x plus 3. Okay, well, I know that the y's are going to be equal when the x's are equal, so I'll just set these two as equal, the equal values method. I'm going to get 2x minus 10 equals negative x plus 3. Okay, and gather my x's on the left, so I'm going to add x to both sides. I'll get 3x, and I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Okay, all right. So now I am going to divide by 3. I'll get x equals 13 thirds. Okay, so now I just need to plug that x back into one of my equations, and I think I'll just use this equation. Oh, couldn't see that. This equation right here. So I've got my x value. Then I know that y equals negative, oops, not negative x, negative 13 over 3 plus, and I know I'm going to have to add these together, so I'm going to make common denominators. 3 is equal to 9 thirds. Okay, and then I'm going to see that y equals negative 4 thirds. Okay, so if y equals -4/3, x equals 13/3, we've got 13/3 plus a negative, minus 4/3, that equals 9/3. 9/3 is equal to 3. Okay, number 10. Which of the following equations has a graph in the xy plane for which y is always greater than or equal to -1? Okay, well, we just need to think about what the absolute value, for the first one, the absolute value function. The absolute value function is like this, but if you subtract 2, it's now 2 below. So that does not satisfy what we're looking for. All right, number 2, or sorry, answer B. Well, we're going to look at what a parent function of a quadratic is. It's like this. However, when you subtract 2, it comes down below, and it's now just like this is at -2. This is at -2. So that also does not satisfy what we're looking for. And then on C, well, C is the quadratic, same graph that we had started with over here, except now instead of being shifted down, this -2 actually shifts it to the right 2 units. So yeah, it's still at y equals 0. It doesn't go below that. So that is going to be our solution. C is going to be our solution. And we can think about D as well. D is a cubic, but it's shifted down as well, right? So also that goes down to -infinity, so that obviously won't be our solution. Okay, number 11. Which of the following complex numbers is equivalent to 3 minus 5i over 8 plus 2i? Okay, well, it looks like if we want to simplify a complex fraction, or a fraction with complex numbers, one great thing to think about is multiplying by the conjugate. That's gonna eliminate the imaginary part in the denominator. And the conjugate is, well, the conjugate of a plus b. The conjugate is a minus b. Okay, and you might see that, oh, this is kind of like, looks like difference of squares. All right, so this is the conjugate. Well, when we multiply out difference of squares, we end up with a square term minus another square term. Okay, so let's multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. We're going to get 3 minus 5i over 8 plus 2i. We're going to multiply that by, oops, the conjugate of the denominator, which is 8 minus 2i. Okay. All right. Now, if we multiply that out, we're going to get, let's, in the numerator, we're going to get 24, and then minus 6i, and then minus 40i, so minus 46i. Let's see if I did that right. Let's see. 3 times 8, yep, and then 3 times -2, -6, and then -40i, okay? And then plus 10i squared, okay? And on the bottom, we're going to get square of the first, which is 64, minus square of the second. Now, square of the second is going to be 4 and I squared. Well, I squared is negative 1, so it's going to be plus 4. Okay? All right, so we can simplify this a little bit. It looks like if I add the bottom together, I'm going to get 68. In the numerator, this is going to be 24. This right here, I squared is negative 1, so that's going to be negative 10. So this is going to be oops. My bad, not negative 14. Minus 46i. Divide the top and the bottom by 2. I'm going to get 7 minus 23i over 34. Okay, well, we know that we can separate out that fraction into 7 over 34 minus 23i over 34. C is going to be our answer. Okay. 12. A website uses the formula above to calculate a seller's rating R based on the number of favorable reviews F and unfavorable reviews N. Which of the following expresses the number of favorable reviews in terms of the other variables? So it's just what we want to do is isolate the F. We're solving for F. Okay, so it doesn't really matter anything else about this, the details about this problem. So let's get this over here. Oops. And F. Okay. So if we multiply both sides by n plus f, we're going to get r times n plus f equals f. Okay, distribute, we get rn plus rf equals f. Okay, I want to gather our f variables to the right, so I'm going to subtract rf, f minus rf, and then I'm going to factor out that f. Just because I know I need to get it by itself, I need one of the f's. Okay, and then I can divide by 1 minus r. Get rn over 1 minus r equals f. And it looks like our solution is going to be B. All right, 13. What is the sum of all values of m that satisfy this quadratic? Okay, well, we'll just need to solve the quadratic. First thing I always do when solving a quadratic is it has to be set equal to 0 in standard form, which it is. But then I look for a common factor, and I can see that I can factor out a 2. Okay. All right, so now we can just look at what's inside of here. We need to solve this piece. Now, if a is 1, which it is in this case, we look for two numbers that multiply to c and add to b. Unfortunately, there's no number that can no numbers that can multiply to 4 and add to -8. Or there are, but they're not whole numbers, whole integers. So we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. That's not too bad. If you remember I hope you remember the quadratic formula. I'm just going to write it out right here. X equals -b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, well, we just need to identify our values here. A is 1, b equals -8, c equals 4. So I just need to plug those into my formula. I'm going to get negative of -8 is +8, and then -8 squared is 64 minus 4. Well, what's a times c? A times c is 1 times 4, that's just 4. Okay, all over 2 times a, which is going to be 2. Okay, so then we've got x equals 8 plus minus, 8 plus minus the square root of, well, it's going to be 64 minus 16. 64 minus 16, let's see, that's 64 minus 16. It's going to be 8, it's going to be 48. All over 2. Okay, well, we're clearly going to have to reduce our square root because our answers are all in simplified form. So when we're simplifying a square root, we're looking for perfect square factors of whatever is under the square root. And in this case, let's see, we got 4, 9, 16. And I see that 16 goes in, so I could rewrite this as square root of 16 times 3 over 2. Okay. All right. Well, if we take the square root of 16, we'll get 8 plus minus, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 3. Okay, all over 2. We can divide the top and the bottom by 2. We'll get 4 plus minus 2 root 3. Okay, so we want the sum of all the values that satisfy this equation. We've got the plus minus of these here. Okay, so I'm going to write over here 4 plus 2 root 3, 4 minus 2 root 3. Well, these guys are going to cancel out, and we're just going to be left with 8 is our solution. All right, 14. A radioactive substance decays at an annual rate of 13%. If the initial amount of the substance is 325 grams, which of the following functions F models the remaining amount of the substance in grams t years later? Okay, well, we know that we're going to have our exponential function is going to be y equals a b to the x, where b is the constant multiple, right? And a is our starting value. So a is our starting value. We can eliminate these because we know we're starting at 325 grams. Now, if we multiply by, if we're decaying by 13%, that's going to be 13% less than 100%. Every year, we're multiplying, every year is going to be 13% less than 100. So it's going to be 87% of what it was the year before. So we need to be multiplying by 0.87, not 0.13. This will decay at a rate of 87% annual rate, which we don't want. So answer is A. Okay, 15. The expression 5x minus 2 is equivalent to which of the 5x minus 2 over x plus 3 is equivalent to which of the following? Okay, so for this one, I think we are going to want to divide. Okay, you can use synthetic division or algebraic long division. I'm partial to algebraic long division, so that's what I'm going to do here. Let's see, so we got x plus 3 into 5x minus 2. How many times does x go into 5x? Well, it goes in 5 times. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 3 is 15. We're going to subtract that. Negative 2 minus 15 is negative 17. And then we see that x does not go into 17, so negative 17. So negative 17 is our remainder. So we see that 5x minus 2 over x plus 3 is equal to 5 minus, right, this, you can say plus a minus, but plus a negative, but we're just going to say minus 17. But that 17 never got divided by x plus 3. So that is our solution. Right here. Answer D. Okay, number 16. The sales manager of a company awarded a total of $3,000 in bonuses to the most productive salespeople. The bonuses were awarded in amounts of $250 or $750. If at least one $250 bonus and at least one $750 bonus were awarded, what is one possible number of $250 bonuses awarded? Okay, so I'm going to say that A will equal the 250 bonus, and B is going to equal the 750 bonus. Okay, now right off the bat, I know that the total of the bonuses is equal to $3,000. Okay, well, the total of bonuses is going to be the sum of the A bonuses and the B bonuses. Well, the sum of the A bonuses is going to be 250 times the number of A bonuses, and the sum of the B bonuses is going to be 750 times the number of B bonuses. Okay, well, I think it might help just to simplify this equation. I recognize that each of these terms is divisible by 250. So we can say 250 into 3,000, well, that's going to be 250 goes into 1,000 4 times, so it must go into 3,000 12 times. Okay, and of course we're just going to have A, and then over here we're going to have 3B. Okay, well, let's see, 12. Okay, alright, so if I subtract A from both sides, I'm going to get 12 minus A equals 3B. Okay, now that means that whatever this is, it has to be a multiple of 3. Okay, that's kind of a tricky problem here. So that means the value on the left could be, it has to be a multiple of 3, and A has to be at least 1. So if A was 1, it'd be 11. Well, can't do that. If A was 3, if A equaled 3, this value would be 9. Yeah, 9 is a multiple of 3. If A was 6, this side would be equal to 6. That's also a multiple of 3. Or if A was 9, this side would be equal to 3, which is a multiple of 3. So the bonuses could be either, or sorry, the number of $250 bonuses, which is A, could be 3, 6, or 9. All right, number 17. In the question above, A, B, and C are constants. If the equation is true for all values of x, what is the value of B? Okay, well, for this type of problem, which I've seen a few of these on various SAT practice tests this year, what we're going to want to do is equate the coefficients. That just means that if we expand, I didn't want to do that. If we expand this left side, we're going to get a squared term, a linear term, and a constant term. And the coefficients, as well as the constants, are going to must necessarily be equal if this equation is true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the left. So I'm going to distribute that 2x across that first binomial. 2x times 3x is 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 5 is 10x. I'm going to distribute that 3 times 3x is 9x. And 3 times 5 is 15. Okay. I'm just going to write this here. Alright, so I'm going to combine like terms. I only have one squared term. Got two linear terms. That's going to be 19x and plus 15. Well, like I said, we can equate the coefficients, right? If we know that a is the coefficient on the x squared term, then a must be 6. If b is the coefficient on the linear term, then b must equal 19. And if c is the constant term, then we know that 15 must be c. So let's try that again. A equals 6, b equals 19, and c equals 15. Okay, so 19. In the figure above, AE is parallel to CD. The segment AD intersects segment CE at B, and at B right here. What is the length of CE? Well, since we know that these are crossing two parallel lines being AE and CD, then we know that we're dealing with transversals. Okay, so if we're dealing with transversals, then we know that our alternate interior angles are going to be congruent, and we know that our alternate interior angles over here as well, and we know that these vertical angles are congruent. So by angle, 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 these two triangles, this triangle up top and this triangle down below, must be similar. If they're similar, then the side lengths are going to be proportional. So we just need to set up a proportion. We want to figure out what the length of CE is. Well, CE, to find CE, we need to first find CB. Okay, well, given that these are similar, then we know that 10 is to 5 as 8 is to CB. Okay, so we're just going to solve this for CB. We get 10 times CB equals 40. CB equals 4. All right, well, CB is 4, and we're not looking for CB. We're looking for CE. So CE is the sum of CB and BE, and and we know that BE equals 8, so 12. Okay, 19. In the xy plane above, O is the center of the circle, and the measure of AOB is pi on A radians. What is the value of A? Okay, so if we know that this angle right here, what they're telling us is AOB, that angle right there is pi on A radians. Okay, well, let's think about the a circle, or sorry, a triangle that represents this angle. If this is pi on A, well, if x is root 3, then this side must be root 3. If y is 1, then this side must be 1. Okay. we can use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what the hypotenuse for this is, which turns out to be the radius. Okay. All right. So the hypotenuse is going to be the square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared. Well, that's going to be square root of 3 squared is 3, 1 squared is 1, so that's going to be the square root of 4. The hypotenuse is going to be 2. Okay. If the hypotenuse is 2, then we know that, I'm just going to write it up here, sine of our angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which is 1/2. Okay, so we need to think back to our unit circle, and our unit circle will show us the sine and cosine of different measures, or different angle measures in radians or in degrees. But the coordinates for these are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Divide everything by 2, and then take the square root of the numerators. Okay, so we can see that sine of an angle equals 1/2. Well, we're looking for where sine is 1/2. That's going to be right here, because sine is the y value of these coordinates. So we just need to figure out what angle this is, and of course that's 30 degrees, or pi on 6. Okay, so then if we know that pi on 6 equals pi on a must equal 6. Okay, 20. In the system of equations above, a and b are constants. If the system has infinitely many solutions, what is the value of a on b? Well, if a system has infinitely many solutions, then we know that the lines are in fact the same. The lines must be on top of each other, the exact same line. So these two equations must be just versions of the same thing. Okay, so what I would like to do is I would like to get the set them as equal. So if I want to set them as equal, I need these guys to be the same. So I'm just going to multiply the first equation by 5. That'll give me 5ax plus 5by equals 60. And the second equation is 2x plus 8y equals 60. Well, now I know the equations, these coefficients, if these are the same lines, these coefficients must be equal. So, did not want to do that. We know that 5a must equal 2, and 5b must equal 8. Okay, so I've got 5a equals 2 and 5b equals 8. Therefore, a equals 2/5 and b equals 8/5. If I want a divided by b, I'm going to do a divided by b. Well, I can turn that into multiplication. Say, well, that's the same as a times the reciprocal of b, which is 5 on 8. The 5's cancel out, and I'm left with 2/8, which reduces to 1/4. So my answer for this is going to be 1/4. All right, that was section 3, and now we're coming up on the calculator section. I'm going to get my calculator handy. Get that right here. And, okay. A musician has a new song available for downloading or streaming. The musician earns 9/100ths of a dollar each time the song is downloaded, or 9 cents each time the song is downloaded, and 2/1000ths of a dollar each time the song is streamed. Which of the following expressions represent the amount in dollars that the musician earns if the song is downloaded D times and streamed S times? Well, he or she is gonna earn 0.09 cents times the number of downloads plus 0.002 times the number of streams. Okay, and it looks like that's going to be C. Okay, number 2. A quality control manager at a factory selects 7 light bulbs at random for inspection out of every 400 light bulbs produced. At this rate, how many light bulbs will be inspected if the factory produces 20,000 light bulbs? Okay, so that's going to be 7 inspected for 400, each 400. Well, it's going to be proportional to the whole, right? So if there's 20,000 produced, we want to know how many are inspected. Okay, we can cross multiply, or essentially undo this division. Multiply both sides by 400, multiply both sides by 20,000. We're going to get 14. It's going to be 4 zeros. 140,000 and 400x. I'm going to divide both sides by 400, and I'm going to get x 140,000, 400. I can cross out some of these zeros here, and I get 1,400 over 4. I'm just going to divide that by 2, just to simplify it real quick. That's 700 over 2. So 350 equals the number of bulbs that are inspected out of 20,000. Okay. Now we've got 3. One end of a spring is attached to a ceiling when an object of mass m kilograms is attached to the other end of the spring. The spring stretches to a length of L centimeters as shown in the equation above. What is m when L is 73? Okay, well, we just need to simply do some substitution here. We're just going to put 73 in for L. 24 plus 3.5 m. Okay, I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. Minus 24, minus 24. That's going to be 6, 13. That's going to be 9, 49. And that's going to be 3.5 m. I know that 7 goes into 49 7 times, and there's 2 of these, so I think it's going to be 14, but I'm just going to double check on my calculator because we have that option here on this part of the test. 49 divided by 3.5 in fact equals 14. So my answer is 14. Okay, so I had to squeeze this one in here a little bit. That's okay. What we have here is, let's see, the amount of money a performer earns is directly proportional to the number of people attending the performance. The performer earns $120 at a performance where 8 people attended. Well, it's not a very large performance, but maybe they're just getting going. Number 4, how much money will the performer earn when 20 people attend the performance? Oh, okay. Well, if it's directly proportional, then we can set up a proportion. So it says that 8 people attended and he earned 120. Well, then if 20 people attended, how much did he earn? Let's cross multiply here. 8x equals, this is going to be 2 times 12 is 24. We have 2 zeros. Okay, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. 24 divided by 8 is 3, and we have 2 zeros, so 300. 300 will be his or her earnings for having 20 people attend. Number 5, the performer uses 43% of the money earned to pay the costs involved in putting on each performance. The result of the money earned in the performance is the performer's profit. What is the profit the performer makes at a performance where 8 people attended? Well, 8 people attended, then he earned, and he brought in a revenue of $120, but he had to he only got a portion of that because he used 43% to pay the costs involved in the performance. So I'm going to be careful here. We don't want to, he didn't take home 43%. That's the money that he had to pay out. He took home 57%. And we want to make sure that we write that as a decimal. Okay, so I'm going to go to my trusty calculator on this one. 120 times 57 hundredths. It's going to equal 68.4. And since we're talking about dollars, I'll tack on a dollar or a zero there. And we see that C, $68.40 is the take-home profit. All right, we got here 6. When 4 times the number x is added to 12, the result is 8. Okay, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to just write that relationship real quick. When 4 times the number x is added to 12, so 12 plus 4x, the result is 8. Okay, what number results when 2 times x is added to 7? Okay, well, I'm going to write the other one down here. 2 times x is added to 7. I'm going to just write that. We start with 7 and we add 2x. What's that equal? Okay, well, we need to figure out what x is. We're going to subtract, we're going to start with our equation up top. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides, and we'll get x equals -4. Divide by 4, x equals -1. Well, if x equals -1, we see that 7 minus 2 equals 5. So 5 would be our solution for this one. Okay, 7. The equation above represents a parabola in the xy plane. Which of the following equivalent forms of the equation displays the x-intercepts of the parabola as constants or coefficients? Okay, well, this is a really easy quadratic to factor, so I think I would just factor this real quick. I'm already seeing that if the a is equal to 1, so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to c and add to b. Okay, well, they multiply to a positive and add to a negative, so they're both going to be negative, and I see that 4 and 2 would fit the bill, -4, -2. So this equation can factor as x minus 4 times x minus 2. Okay, well, the x-intercepts for this graph are 4 and 2. Okay, so where are those in our solutions? Right here, D. Okay. In a video game, each player starts the game with K points and loses 2 points each time a task is not completed. If a player who gains no additional points and fails to complete 100 tasks has a score of 200 points, what is the value of K? So if we know we start with K, we know we start with K, and we know that we are losing 2 points each task we don't complete. Let's call that each task that we don't complete X. And we know that that will be their current score. Okay, well in this situation, we know we start with K, and we know that the player fails to complete 100 tasks, and we know that their score is 200 points. Okay, well, let's see. So that's going to be negative 200 equals 2. Okay, so add 200 to both sides. So K equals 400. All right, a worker uses a forklift to move boxes that weigh either 40 pounds or 65 pounds each. Let X be the number of 40-pound boxes and Y be the number of, I'm just going to highlight that, X is going to be the number of 40-pound boxes, and we're going to say that Y is the number of 65-pound boxes. The forklift can carry up to either 45 boxes or a weight of 2,400 pounds. Which of the following systems of inequalities represents the relationship? So we know that the number of boxes has to be less than or equal to 45, right? Because that's the max that it can carry, the forklift can carry. So X plus Y has to be less than or equal to 45. Okay, well, I think we can eliminate the last one. That doesn't satisfy. We don't get that inequality there, and we don't get that inequality in the third one either. It's going to be the A or B. And we know that the total weight has to be less than or equal to 2,400 pounds. Well, the total weight is going to be the sum of all the X boxes and all of the Y boxes. The X boxes are going to be a total of 40 times X, and the Y boxes are going to be a total of 65 times Y. That has to be less than or equal to 2,400. Okay, so it looks like our only solution, the possible solution, is A. Okay, next problem. A function f satisfies f of 2 equals 3, f of 3 equals 5. A function g satisfies g of 3 equals 2, g of 5 equals 6. What is the value of f of g of 3? Okay, this is a pretty straightforward function notation problem. I'm just going to write out what we got here, f of g of 3. Okay, well, first we need to simplify from the inside out. What is g of 3? Well, g of 3 is 2. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this then. F of 2 is really what we're looking for. And I can see that f of 2 equals, f of 2 equals 3. Therefore, our solution is going to be B. Okay. We've got a table here, and it looks like something's number of hours Tony plans to read the novel, number of parts in the novel, chapters, words, pages, and all right, so let's do this. Tony is planning to read a novel. The table above shows information about the novel, Tony's reading speed, and the amount of time he plans to spend reading the novel each day. If Tony reads at the rate given in the table, which of the following is closest to the number of days it would take Tony to read the entire novel? Okay, so let's see. It gives us, this gives us the number of words he can read per minute, and it gives us the total number of words in the novel. I don't think we really need any of this other information. We just need to know how many words and the rate that he reads those words. Okay, so I'm just going to take the number of words and divide it by the rate he would, or the number of words he reads per minute. This is going to tell me how many minutes it's going to take him to read the novel. Okay, well, I'm going to use my calculator for this. Let's see. 349,168 divided by 250. Okay, so that's going to be 1,396.672 minutes. Okay, this is great. Okay, so now we have the number of minutes. But it says that we're not really looking for that. We're looking for the number of days. But what's significant here is that he only plans to read 3 hours a day. Okay, so if we could figure out the number of days, we could then figure out the number of hours, then we could figure out the number of days pretty easily. So we need to divide this by the number of minutes in an hour. Okay, do that now on my trusty calculator. 1,396.672 divided by 60. Okay, so I'm just going to round that. We got about 23.28 hours. Okay, well, he's only reading 3 hours a day, so we need to divide that by the number of hours he reads in a day, which is 3, and we're going to get about 7.76 hours. Okay, and we want to know which one of these solutions is which of the following is the closest to the number of days it will take Tony to read the entire novel. Okay, well, I can see that that's going to be 8. Alright, on January 1st, 2000, there were 175,000 tons of trash in a landfill that had a capacity of 325,000 tons. Each year since then, the amount of trash in the landfill increased by 7,500 tons. If Y represents the time in years after January 1st, 2000, which of the following inequalities describes the set of years where the landfill is at or above capacity? Okay, so we want to know where it's at or above capacity. That means greater than or equal to. Well, capacity is 325,000 tons. So 325,000, we want something to be at or above that. So 325,000 has to be less than or equal to. Okay, and we know that we started with 175,000 tons, and then every year we were adding to that the amount of 7,500 tons per year. Y. Okay, so that's our equation, and it looks like we've got a solution right here. Perfect. D. A researcher conducted a survey to determine whether people in a certain large town preferred watching sports on television to attending the sporting event. The researchers asked 117 people who visited a local restaurant on a Saturday, and 7 people refused to respond. Which of the following factors makes it least likely that a reliable conclusion can be drawn about the sports watching preferences of all the people in the town? Alright, well, the first thing that's kind of suspicious to me is that they went to one restaurant on a specific day. So I don't know. Let's see. So the sample size is the population size would be the population of the city, or C, the number of people who refused to respond, and where the survey was given. Okay. And that's what my initial thought was, that it's kind of suspicious that if you're trying to find the preferences of a large town, all the people in the city, and you only go to a restaurant on a Saturday, well, you might be missing a lot of people. You might be missing a lot of people that are at home watching sports on television. So, D, where the survey was given and when the survey was given as well might affect the results. Okay. Looks like we have miles traveled by air passengers in country X over the period 1960 to 2005. Okay. According to the line of best fit in the scatter plot above, which of the following best approximates the year in which the number of miles traveled by air passengers in country X was estimated to be 550 billion? Okay, so we want to zoom in here, and we want to know, well, where is the number of miles traveled, 550 billion. It's going to be right here. And we can see if I can do a straight line. Boom. And then we come straight down. And it looks like something below 2005. And, 2003 will fit the bill. Okay. The distance traveled by Earth in one orbit around the Sun is about 580 million miles. Earth makes one complete orbit around the Sun in 1 year. Of the following, which is closest average speed of Earth in miles per hour as it orbits the Sun? So we want the unit rate, not a ratio of distance to time. So we're going to have to do some conversions here. So let's start with the ratio of miles traveled to, let's move it over, to the year, to 1 year. To 1 year. So this is miles and this is year. Okay, well, years are not going to be very helpful, so we're going to have to convert that into hours. Well, how many days in a year? There are 365 days in a year, so we can start there. And then of those 365 days, there are 24 hours in each day. So this will turn into 1 times 365 times 24. That'll give us the number of hours that it's traveling. Okay, I'm going to go to my calculator here, and I'm going to type in 580 million divided by 365 times 24, and I get 66,210 point blah. Okay. All right. Well, that's 66,210 miles per hour, and that's exactly what it's asking us. Miles per hour, 600, and 66,000 is closest. Okay. What we have here is we have a table, and it's the results of the bar exam at law school graduates. The table above summarizes the results of 200 law school graduates who took the bar exam. If one of the surveyed graduates who passed the bar exam is chosen at random for an interview, what is the probability that the person chosen did not take the review course? So, one of the surveyed graduates who passed. It's important. So we're only looking at people who passed the survey. And if we take one of those people, well, we want to select one of those people at random. What is the probability that they did not take the review course? Well, how many people did not take the review course? Well, 7 people did not take the review course. And how many people passed? Well, 25 passed. So 7 out of 25 would be the probability that the person passed, or the person selected, did not take the review course. Okay. The atomic weight of an unknown element in atomic mass units is approximately 20% less than that of calcium. The atomic weight of calcium is 40 atomic mass units. Which of the following best approximates the atomic weight in atomic mass units of the unknown element? So it's 20% less than calcium. Calcium is 40, so 20% of 40, 20% of 40, well, that's going to be a fifth. A fifth of 40 is just 40 divided by 5. Well, that equals 8. So this is 8 atomic mass units less than 40, so C. Okay. A survey was taken of the value of homes in a country, and it was found that the mean home value was in a county. The mean home value was $165,000, and the median home value was $125,000. Which of the following situations could explain the difference between the mean and median home values in the county? If the mean is greater than the median, that means that there are going to be some outliers on the upper end. If we drew the picture of this is going to be something like this. So most of the data is going to be maybe around here, and there might be a couple outliers up here, this will pull the mean in this direction. However, the median for this data set is still going to be somewhere around here. Okay, so outliers are going to pull the mean above the median. So the homes have values that are close to each other. B, there are a few homes that are valued much less than the rest. C, there are a few homes that are valued much more than the rest. That sure sounds like us, our answer. And D, many of the homes have values between 125 and 165,000. I'm going to say C. Okay, number 19 and 20. So a sociologist chose 300 students at random from each of 2 schools and asked each student how many siblings he or she has. The results are shown in the table. Okay, very well. There are a total of 2,400 students at Lincoln and 3,300 students at Washington. Okay. All right. So our first problem here is asking, what is the median number of siblings for all of the students surveyed? Well, there were 300 surveyed from each school, from each of the 2 schools. So that's 600 total. Well, if 600 students were surveyed, the median is going to fall in the middle, around 300, or at 300. Okay, so all we need to do to find the median in this case is to go through the data, which is already in order from 0 to 4, and go through until we get to 300. So the first here is 280, 120 plus, or sorry, 160, 260. And then after we add the rest of it, after the next 2, that'd be 340, it'd be 550. Well, it looks like the median is going to fall within this category. So our median for this set is B. Okay. Number 20. Based on the survey data, which of the following most accurately compares the expected total number of students with 4 siblings at the 2 schools? Alright, so A is saying the total number of students with 4 siblings is expected to be equal to at the 2 schools. B, the total number of students with 4 siblings at Lincoln is expected to be 30 more than at Washington. Or the total number of students with 4 siblings at Washington is expected to be 30 more than at Lincoln. And finally, the total number of students with 4 siblings at Washington School is expected to be 900 more than at Lincoln. Okay, so if 300 students were surveyed at Lincoln, and 10 of those students had 4 siblings, then for the whole school, we would want to say that we would need to look at the number of students at Lincoln, which is 2,400. Okay, 2,400. Okay, so I'm just gonna drop that 0. I get cross multiply. I get 2,400 equals 30x, and then I'm going to get 2,400 divided by 30 equals x, drop a 0, and 240 divided by 3 is 80. So that's at Lincoln. Okay, now let's look at Washington. Well, there are 10 students out of 300 that had 4 siblings. Well, we need to look at the total number of students at Washington, which was 3,300, and we're going to have 3,300. Cancel those zeros. We're going to get cross multiply. 3,300 equals 30x, and divide both sides by 30, drop a 0, and then we get these cancel out, and this is at Washington. So 330 divided by 3 is going to be 110. So 110 students at Washington have 4 siblings, and at Lincoln, 80 students have 4 siblings. So let's go back to look at number 3. The total number of students with 4 siblings at Washington is expected to be 30 more than at Lincoln. That is our solution. Okay, 21. A project manager estimates that a project will take X hours to complete, where X is greater than 100. The goal is for the estimate to be within 10 hours of the time it will actually take to complete the project. If the manager meets the goal and it takes Y hours to complete the project, which of the following inequalities represents the relationship between the estimated time and the actual time to complete? Okay, so if they met their goal, then they are within 10 hours above and 10 hours below the difference in the actual time to complete and the estimated time to complete was less than 10, either above or below. So the difference in the time that it took to complete the task, well, that's just going to be Y minus X. Okay, and that has to be in between 10 hours over and 10 hours under. So it's going to have to be greater than, the difference is going to have to be greater than negative 10. It's going to be less than positive 10. It has to be in that sweet spot right in the middle. And that is one of our solutions. Okay, number 22 and 23. All right. Let's see if I slide this over so I can see it. There we go. Okay. At a large distance r from the radio antenna, the intensity of the radio signal I is related to the power of the signal P by the formula above. Okay, so it looks like it's the intensity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance, because the distance is squared in the denominator. Number 22. Which of the following expresses the square of the distance from the radio antenna in terms of the intensity of the signal and the power of the signal? Well, again, this is similar to a lot of problems that we've already done. You want one variable in terms of another, in terms of the others. So as you can see, all you're doing is solving for r squared in this problem. So I'm just gonna write the problem down. There we go. The intensity equals the power divided by 4 pi r squared. Okay, so if I multiply both sides by r to get it out of the denominator, I'm going to have I r squared equals power over 4 pi. Divide both sides by I. The radius squared is going to be equal to the power divided by 4 pi I. Okay, and that is one of our solutions. B will be our solution. All right, 23. For the same signal emitted by a radio antenna, observer A measures the intensity to be 16 times the intensity observed by observer B. The distance of the observer A from the radio antenna is what fraction of the distance of observer B from the radio antenna? Okay, so if observer A, let's say the intensity of A is equal to 16 times the intensity of B. Okay, and the distance of A to the antenna is what fraction of the distance from B to the radio, distance of observer B from the radio antenna. So we want to figure out what the ratio is for the distances. So on the left, we're going to have a expression here. It's going to be P over 4 pi r squared. Now this is A, this is distance. And over here we've got 16 times P over 4 pi r squared. That's B. Okay. Well, if we multiply both sides by pi, 4 pi, we'll eliminate those. If we multiply or divide both sides by the power of the antenna, we'll get rid of those. What we'll have here is just 1 over the distance of A squared is equal to 16 over the distance of B squared. Okay, and we want to know the fraction of A to B. Okay, so if we multiply both sides by r squared of the distance of B, this guy, we're going to get r squared of B's distance over r squared of A's distance is equal to 16. Okay, well, if we don't want the squared distance, we want the actual distance. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and then we have the distance of B over the distance of A equals 4. Okay, all right, well, this is not quite what we want. We want what fraction is A's distance out of B's distance. Okay, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to write it over here. We have the ratio of B's distance to A's distance equals 4. Well, we want to take the reciprocal of both sides so that we have the fraction that A is of B, and we take the fraction of the right, we get 1/4. So 1/4 is our solution. Okay, 24. The equation above, the equation of a circle in the xy plane is shown above. What is the radius of the circle? Okay, so when we're dealing with circles, we can, I'm just going to write out the formula for the circle. It is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. This is a formula that comes out of the Pythagorean theorem. You can watch one of my other videos on circles to get more information about that. Now, to get our equation into this format, we're going to have to do something called complete the square. So we're going to have to group our x terms. We're going to group our x terms. I'm going to leave a little bit of space because we're going to add something in there. And I'm going to group my y terms. Positive y squared and negative 2y. I'm going to leave a little space, and that's going to equal negative 1. Okay. So to complete the square, we need C needs to be equal to b over 2 squared. Okay, so what I need to add to my x terms is I need to add b over 2 squared. Well, it's just going to be 4 divided by 2 squared is 4. And I need to do the same to my y's. Oh, and I've got to add 4 to the other side. I need to do the same to my y's. Well, 1/2 of -2 is -1. Squared is 1. So I'm going to add 1 as well. Okay. So on the left side, I can take a square of this, or sorry, factor this, and I can factor this. It will be x plus 2 squared and y minus 1 squared equals, well, these two cancel out. It's just going to be 4. I know that the radius squared is equal to 4, so I know the radius must equal 2. Okay, 25. The graph of the linear function f has intercepts at a, 0, and 0b in the xy plane. If a plus b equals 0 and a does not equal b, which of the following is true about the slope of f? Okay, so we know it's a linear function, and we know that a plus b equals 0, so they must be inverses, right? So if we know that a must equal -b. Okay. All right. So a0, well, that could be here, or if a is negative, it could be here. Okay. Well, if a is positive, well, then b must be negative. So if a is positive, b must be negative, and 0b must be down here, in which case you'd have a positive slope. Okay, well, let's look at the other one. If a was negative, then b must be positive. Well, if a is negative and then b is positive, b must have a point up here, also a positive slope. So we can see that the solution for this is that the slope is going to be positive. Okay. The complete graph of the function f is shown in the xy plane above. Which of the following are equal to 1? Okay, well, f, remember that the input, the input to our function gives us our output. So we just need to look at our graph and think, well, where does the graph equal to 1? It's equal to 1 all across this line. So we can say that here, that's going to be at -1, 2, 3, 4. So f of -4 equals 1. You can see that here at 1, x is 1, f of 1 equals 1. And anything in between, f of 1 and f of 1, 2, 3, f of 3 is also going to equal 1. So we're going to have our solution at -4. We're going to have a solution at 3. And 3/2 is, well, that's 1.5. That's also in between. So we have our solution is all 3 of these would be solutions. Okay, this one was a big one. So we'll start with this and we'll squeeze it back in. All right. 2 samples of water of equal mass are heated to 60 degrees Celsius. One sample is poured into an insulated container and the other sample is poured into a non-insulated container. Okay. The samples are then left for 70 minutes to cool in at room temperature. cool in a room having a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. The graph above shows the temperature of each sample at 10-minute intervals. Which of the following statements correctly compares the average rates at which the temperatures of the two samples change? I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna duplicate this. Oops. Okay. And I'm going to, just so we can have a picture of the graph as we're reading the questions. So the A says, in every 10-minute interval, the magnitude of the rate of change of the temperature of the insulated sample is greater than that of the non-insulated sample. Well, the insulated sample, the rate of change for the insulated sample is the slope of the line. Okay? The slope of the line is the rate of change. Okay? And it does not appear that the insulated sample has a greater rate of change at any point. In fact, well, it does have a greater rate of change towards the end of the graph, towards this area, because the non-insulated sample has cooled off and has stopped changing temperature at that point. All right, B, in every 10-minute interval, the magnitude of the rate of change of temperature of the non-insulated sample is greater than that of the insulated sample. Well, it starts off, the non-insulated sample starts off with a greater rate of change, yeah, but that rate of change slows down and goes to almost zero at the end, whereas the insulated sample continues to change. The non-insulated sample just got to that baseline temperature faster. C, in the intervals from 0 to 10 minutes and from 10 to 20 minutes, the rates of change of temperature in the insulated sample are of greater magnitude whereas in intervals from 40 to 50 and from 50 to 60, the rates of change of the temperature in the non-insulated sample are of greater magnitude. So if we look at the interval from 0 to 10 and 10 to 20, the rate of change of the insulated sample, those have less, the rate of change in this interval is less than the rate of change for the non-insulated sample. Okay, so C doesn't work. And then the last one, D, in the intervals from 0 to 10 and from 10 to 20, the rates of change in temperature of the non-insulated sample are of greater magnitude. Yes, right? The non-insulated sample is losing temperature faster in this period, okay? And then in the interval from 40 to 50 and 50 to 60, the rate of change in temperature of the insulated sample are of greater magnitude. Yeah, at this point, at this tail end right here, the rate of change has a greater magnitude for the insulated. So we're going to say that our answer would be D. Okay, number 28. So for this problem, we've got a square on the xy plane. That square is ABCD, and point E is at the center. Okay, so point E is at the center. Let's see. The coordinates of point C and E are 7, 2, and 1, 0, respectively. Which of the following is an equation of the line that passes through the points B, D? Okay, well, if this is in fact a square, we know that a square, the diagonals of a square, intersect at 90-degree angle. So the slope of the line going through DE will have the reciprocal, or the negative reciprocal slope as the line going through E and C. So let's find the slope of the line going through EC. That slope is going to be, well, y minus y over x minus x. Negative 2 over negative 6. It's going to be 1/3. So the negative reciprocal of 1/3 is negative 3. And we can write, so the new slope, so slope number 1, slope 2 would be negative 3. Since we have a point at E, I can go ahead and write the equation for that line in point slope form. Y minus y1, which is 0, equals slope times x minus x1, which is 1. Well, that's just going to be 1, or sorry, it's going to be y on the left, and on the right we're going to distribute. We'll get negative 3x plus 3. So we look at our options, and unfortunately that is not one of the options. However, the right side before we distributed was negative 3 times x minus 1, and that would be B. Okay, so 29. In the system of equations above, a and b are constants. For which of the following values of a and b does the system of equations have exactly 2 solutions? Alright, well, let's start by just sketching what we're looking at here. If the first equation is going to be something like this, right? 1, 2, 3. So that's y equals 3, and we want values of a and b that that will create 2 solutions for the parabola. Well, the first one, if b is 2 and a is negative, then it will be something like this. That's going to have 0 solutions. Alright, well, for b, we have b is 4. That means this parabola is going to be shifted up 4, and a is negative. Well, that's going to be something like this. That has exactly 2 solutions. Alright, so I think that b is going to be our solution to this. Let's keep going. Let's check out the rest. The next is b is 4 and a is 2. Well, if b is 4, then we're shifting the parabola up 4 units. And with a positive a value, it's going to be opening up. It's going to be looking something like this. Okay. And finally, on our last one here, we're shifting the parabola up 3 units, and then we're opening up. Well, if we shift it up 3 units, it's going to be here and go up. That's going to have 1 solution. So our answer is B. Okay, number 30. The figure above shows a regular hexagon with side lengths with sides of length A and a square with sides of length A. If the area of the hexagon is 384 times root 3 square inches, what is the area of the square in square inches? Okay, so one thing about regular polygons is that they can be divided up into triangles. Okay? And since this is a hexagon, I'm gonna, oops, I can divide this up as such. 3 equal triangles. I didn't like that last one. Let's see, 3 equal triangles. And we know that the base of these triangles is A. If we know the area of the entire hexagon, we know that, well, that each triangle is just going to be 1/6 of that entire area. This can be the area of each triangle. Okay, well, that's going to be a sixth. 6 goes into 38 6 times, with a remainder of 2 goes into 24 4 times. Okay, so each triangle is going to have an area of 64√3. Okay, now I'm going to take one of those triangles. Let's see. That I'm going to zoom into that. That will be a triangle as such. Now, if we divide this into, if we drop an altitude, yeah, these two triangles are going to be 30, 60, 90 triangles, and we can show that by thinking about the center of this hexagon. Well, it's going to be 360 degrees divided into 6 equal sections, so this will be a 60-degree angle, and therefore this angle must be 30 because these are isosceles triangles. That's a 30-degree angle. This is a 90-degree. Then this must be a 60-degree. This is going to be a 30, 60, 90-degree triangle. And there are some relationships that hold for a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And those are that the short side, x, the long side or long leg will be x times √3, and the hypotenuse will be 2 times x. So if we are trying to find the hypotenuse, if we are trying to find the hypotenuse, or sorry, h, which is the height, the altitude of this, of the equilateral triangle, then we are going to be using this right here. Well, we know that the side length, the whole side length is A, so this side length is A on 2, therefore the height must equal A on 2 times, which is this guy, A on 2 times √3. So A times √3 on 2. Okay, fair enough. All right, now again, the base of the triangle, the whole base is the side length of the hexagon, which was A. And the area of the triangle can be calculated by 1/2 base times height. That'd be 1/2 A times A √3 on 2. That equals the area of the triangle. Well, we already know that the area of the triangle is 64√3. Okay, so if we simplify the left, we're going to get a squared √3 over 4 equals 64√3. I'm going to divide both sides by 3 or √3, and then I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. I'll get A equals, well, 64 times 4, 6, 24, 256. 256. Okay. Well, we're looking for the area of the square. The area of the square. The square has a side length of a, so the area of the square is a squared, 256. Okay. A coastal geologist estimates that a certain country's beaches are eroding at a rate of 1.5 feet per year. According to the geologist's estimate, how long will it take in years for the country's beaches to erode by 21 feet? So if they're eroding by 1.5 feet per year, and then let's see, and we want to know how long it'll take for them to erode by 21 feet. Well, it'd be 21 divided by 1.5. 1.5 is half of 3. 3 goes into, divide both sides by 1.5. 3 goes into 21 7 times, so 1.5 must go in 14 times. So it should take 14 years for the beach to erode by 21 feet. Okay, get this around here. Okay. If h hours and 30 minutes is equal to 450 minutes, what is the value of h? Okay, well, we know that if it's h hours, that's going to be a total of 60 times h minutes plus 30 minutes. Well, we know that that equals 450 minutes. So I'm just going to subtract 30 from both sides and then divide both sides by 60. I get 7 hours, or h equals 7. Okay. In the xy plane, the point 36 lies on the graph of a function. What is the value of b? Okay, well, this is just telling us that f of 3 equals 6. So when the input is 3, the output is 6. Okay, so then I'm looking for f of 3 equals 3 times 3 squared, putting 3 in for x, minus b times 3 plus 12. Okay, well, f of 3 equals 6. 3 squared is 9. And I'm just going to write that 3b plus 12. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. Get negative 6 equals, well, that's going to be 27 minus 3b. Subtract 27 from both sides. That's going to be negative 33. Okay, divide both sides by negative 3. Okay, I'm going to see that 11 equals b. All right, looks good. Okay. 34. In one semester, Doug and Laura spent a combined 250 hours in the tutoring lab. If Doug spent 40 more hours in the lab than Laura did, how many hours did Laura spend in the lab? Okay, so what we have here is we know that the hours that Doug spent plus the hours that Laura spent totaled 250 hours. We also know that Doug spent 40 more than Laura. So Laura Laura's hours plus 40. Okay, well, if we know what Doug's hours are, that's Laura plus 40, we can substitute that into our equation here. So we have Laura's hours plus 40, which is Doug's hours, plus Laura's hours equals 250. Well, that's going to be 2L plus 40 equals 250. Subtract 40 from both sides. We get 210. 2L equals 210, and divide both sides by 2. We see that Laura spent 105 hours in the lab. Okay. Jane made an initial deposit to a savings account each week thereafter. She deposited a fixed amount to the account. The equation above models the amount A in dollars that Jane has deposited after T weekly deposits. According to the model, how many dollars was Jane's initial deposit? Okay. So I'm going to read that again. So the equation above, A dollars. Okay, so this equation is a linear equation. It's in the form y equals mx plus b. If we graph this equation, it would be something like this. This is not to scale, but there's going to be a positive slope, and it's going to have a y-intercept of 15. Then every t, which is a week, every week it's going to increase by 18. Okay, so the value when the weeks are 0, well, that must be the initial deposit, and that would be 15. Okay. In the figure above, point O is at the center of the circle. Line segments LM and MN are tangent to the circle at points L and N respectively, and the segments intersect a point M as shown. Okay. If the circumference of the circle is 96, what is the length of the arc LN? Okay. So let's take a look. All right, so I know that if a line is tangent to a circle, it intersects at 90 degrees. So I know that this is going to be 90 and this is going to be 90. Well, then if I cut this in half right here, I know that I'm going to have two identical triangles. And if this was 60, well, now this is 30. Okay? All right. Well, if that's 30, then this must be 60, and this must be 60. Okay? So the central angle is a total of 120 degrees. Okay? Central angle is 120 degrees. Well, remember that the central angle is going to be equal to the arc measure in degrees. So the arc measure in degrees is also 120. So if this is 120, so is this. Okay? Well, 120 is a fraction of the whole circle. Well, the circumference is going to be proportional to the central angle. So we know that the circumference, which is given as 96, should be proportional to, or sorry, the arc of that intersection or intercepted arc will be proportional. So we can just solve this proportion. So I'm going to cancel out the zeros. I'm just going to reduce this a little bit. I know I can make that 1/3 equals the arc length over 96. Therefore, 96 times the arc, 96 times 1 should equal the 3 times the arc length. Divide both sides by 3, and we have that 32 should equal the arc length. Okay, look how far we have come. We are in the last two problems of the math section of the SAT. Alright, so a botanist is cultivating a rare species of plant in a controlled environment and currently has 3,000 of these plants. The population of the species that the botanist expects to grow next year can be estimated from the number of plants this year by the equation below. So for 37, according to the formula, what will the number of plants 2 years from now, what will the number of plants be 2 years from now if k equals 4,000? The population max is 4,000. Round your answer to the nearest whole number. Okay, so just going to be applying this formula, and it looks like if we're going to be 2 years from now, it looks like we're going to have to apply the formula twice. Okay, so what we are going to end up with next year is based on this year. This year there are 3,000 plants, so we're going to put in 3,000 for this year. 0.2, again this year is 3,000, and then times 1 minus this year, which is 3,000, over k, which is 4,000. Alright, we're just going to simplify this. Next year is going to be 3,000 plus, well, 0.2 is equal to 1/5. 1/5 of 3,000 is really 3,000 divided by 5. It's 600. Okay, and 1 minus, simplify this guy, it's going to be 3/4. Okay, so next year there should be 3,000, I keep saying that, plus 600 times, well, 1 minus 3/4 is 1/4. 1/4 of 600, well, 1/4 of 60 is 15, so 1/4 of 600 is 150. Okay, so that means that next year the population is going to be 3,000 plus 150, or 3,150. Okay, so that's next year, but we want 2 years. 2 years from now. So we're going to have to plug this back into our function. Okay. So then, starting from next year, the subsequent year will be equal to the current year, which would be 3,150 plus 0.2 times 3,150 times 1 minus 3,150 over 4,000. Okay, and we can simplify that. I'm gonna pull out get my calculator ready. Haven't had that out, but okay. Alright, so we're gonna need to have 0.2 times 3,150. Well, that's a little bit harder than 0.2 times 3,000, so 0.2 times 3,150, that's 630, And then we have 1 minus 3150 divided by 4,000. Okay. And that is going to equal 0.2125. All right, so then we're just going to have 3150 plus 630 times 0.2125, and we get 0.875. I'm going to round to 9.9 because we're going to round this anyways. This is rounded to the nearest whole number, so that is going to be 4. If we add these two together, we're going to get 3150 plus 134. 3150 plus 134, 3,284 is the answer for problem number 7. Okay, so we're going to have to erase a little bit of this. See if I can drag this guy over here. It moves some of the highlighting, but that's fine. Alright, 38. The botanist would like to increase the number of plants that the environment can support so that the population of the species will increase more rapidly. If the botanist's goal is that the number of plants will increase from 3,000 this year to 3,360 next year, how many plants must the modified environment support? So we are just going to be figuring out what the K value is that will facilitate this increase in population. So if we know that next year we want to have 3,360, and this year we have 3,000, plus 0.2 times 3,000, that's this year, times 1 minus this year over K. Alright, well, we're just going to attempt to isolate the K value. Alright, so I'm going to subtract 3,000 from both sides. I'll get 360 equals 0.2 times, and actually, what is 0.2 of 3,000? Well, it's a fifth of 3,000. It's 600. Might as well just write that in. 1 minus 3,000 over K. Alright. I am going to divide both sides by 600. I'll get 360 over 600 equals 1 minus 3,000 over K. Well, that's going to be 36 over 60. Divide top and bottom by 12. I see that goes both evenly into both. So I have 3/5. 1 minus 3,000 over K. Alright, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. Well, 3/5 minus 1, that's 3/5 minus 5/5, that's going to be negative 2/5 equals negative 3,000 K. Okay, I'm going to scoot it up here. I'll cross multiply and get negative 2K equals negative 15,000. Divide by negative 2, I get 7,500. So the population needs to be able to support 7,500 plants for the population to be able to increase from 3,000 to 3,360 on a subsequent year.